It's mise on Seanchaidh, and this is Thistle Stone. They ruled from the black cliffs of the Cuillin to the green coast of Antrim, from Kintyre's wild shore to the wind-lashed rocks of St Kilda. They were kings in everything but name, and when they fell, it was not with a roar, but with a silence so complete it still rings in the ears of the Gael. This is the story of the Macdonalds. This is their school. Children of Somerled, lords of the Isles, the greatest dynasty Scotland ever tried to forget. It's mise on Seanchaidh, and this is Thistle and Stone. Long before Somerled ever drew breath, the old ones on Islay told of Calla Uish, who wept 7 tears into the western sea. From those tears would rise a line of kings who would rule the waves themselves. And when that line fell, the sea would remember, and one day it would give them back. Listen, the tide is still turning. Cuimhnich. The tale begins in the mist between two worlds. In the middle of the 12th century, the western seas were ruled by Viking jarls, who had forgotten they were ever Norse and thought themselves gods of the waves. Into that world stepped a man born of both bloods, Gaelic mother, Norse father, named Somerled, the summer wanderer, the man who would become the terror of the longships and the father of a nation. At 35, he had nothing but a sword, a burlin, and a heart that would not bow. By the time he died in 1164, he had carved out a sea realm that stretched from the Butt of Lewis to the Isle of Man. He did it the old way, by marriage, by fosterage, by the loyalty of men who would rather die than break an oath sworn on his sword hilt. When he fell at Renfrew, struck down by treachery, the West did not mourn. It simply changed its name. From that day forward, the kings of the Isles called themselves Macdonald, children of Donald, the son Somerled loved best. For 300 years, the lordship of the Isles stood like a mountain the Stuart kings could never climb. They held court on the little island of Finlaggan on Islay, where 2 lochs meet, and the water is so still it mirrors the sky. There, the Lord was crowned barefoot, on an ancient stone set in the loch, the same stone that had crowned the kings of Dalriata 1,000 years before. No Stuart ever dared set foot on that island without leave. 14 chiefs and 3 bishops sat in a circle of equals. No high table, no throne. Because in the Isles, a man's word and his blood were still worth more than any crown in Edinburgh. That was power the Lowlands could not understand, and therefore could not forgive. Their galleys, black-hulled, red-sailed, cut the minch like knives through silk. They answered to no one unless it pleased them, and it seldom did. They married the daughters of Irish kings and Hebridean chieftains, and the old Gaelic blood ran truer and deeper with every generation. They were the last Gaelic kingdom in Britain, and they knew it. Pride is a dangerous thing when you live beside men who covet what you have. The Stuarts wanted the Isles. They could not take them by force, so they found another weapon, the Campbells of Argyll. Where the Macdonalds ruled by the sword and the spoken oath, the Campbells ruled by parchment and patience. Every charter the crown granted them was a slice cut from Macdonald land. Every marriage they made was a rope tightening around the lordship's neck. The feud burned slow at first. Cattle raids, burned barns, a ski and do in the dark, then burst into open war. Harlaw in 1411 was the first thunderclap. Donald of Islay marched east to claim the earldom of Ross by right of blood. The lowland host met him on the red field outside Aberdeen, and for one day the fate of Gaelic Scotland hung on the edge of a dirk. When the sun set, the heather was black with blood, and the flower of the lowland knights lay dead. But Donald's host was broken. He rode west with his dream in ashes, and the crown never forgave the name MacDonald. Harlaw was only the first blow. The Statutes of Iona in 1609 began the slow strangling. Heirs sent south to forget their tongue. Bards outlawed. Armed men counted and taxed. Then the forfeiture of 1493 became the model. A safe conduct to court, a promise broken, a kingdom murdered by ink.
The galleys were burned, the council dissolved, the land parcelled out to those who would do the crown's bidding. One policy, different masks. Parchment, debt, sheep, and now silent estates owned by charities that have never heard a Gaelic song. Same hand, same wound. The end came quietly, the way the worst ends do. In 1493, John Macdonald, the last lord, sat in his castle at Ardtornish, playing chess with an English envoy. The letters they exchanged promised an alliance that would tear Scotland in two. Someone carried those letters to Edinburgh. James IV summoned John to court for talks. John went, trusting in the old bond between king and kindred chief. He never came home. But the blood remembered. At Killiecrankie, at Sheriff Muir, at Preston Pans, at Culloden Field itself, the Macdonalds of the Isles carried the white cockade for the old dream. 500 fell in the front line, roaring, "Froch Eilin!" while the same crown that stole Finlaggan demanded their lives to guard its empire. They gave them freely, because a Macdonald keeps faith, even when the other side never did. Stone remembers what parchment forgets. Finlaggan still lies quiet on its loch. Dunveig still broods over Lagavulin Bay. Ardtornish, Armadale, and the other great seats of the lordship stand ruined yet proud. When the sheep came, even lords of Macdonald blood
chained by debts no chief could outrun, signed the eviction orders. Islay, Kintyre, the Uists, Mull, the coffin ships sailed heavy with the children of the Isles. They stood in the red coats at Waterloo, died speaking Gaelic in the trenches of the Somme, built new glens in Cape Breton and Carolina, where the pipes still weep for home. Today, a croft that once fed 12 souls with peat smoke and stories sells for the price of a city stranger's second house. The ridge that flew the galley banner now carries a forest owned by a trust that has never heard the mod. The wind that once filled red sails now turns blades owned by men who do not know whose bones lie beneath them. The silence that began at Finlaggan in 1493 is not finished. It only learned to speak more softly. But you will still find them everywhere. A fisherman in Moydat who can recite the pedigree of his boat back to Somerled's day. A piper in Nova Scotia whose lament makes grown men weep for a home they have never seen. A woman in Glasgow who signs her name Vic Domhnall and knows exactly what it cost her ancestors to keep that spelling. The name is common now, worn by millions who have no idea what it once meant. But the stone remembers. The sea remembers. Finlaggan is calling again. The western sea is turning. The blood of Somerled is rising. Will you answer? Cuimhnich ar nar dríghrin. Remember your high kings and come home. It's Misha on Seanchaidh, and this is Thistle and Stone. Cuimhnich, Cuimhnich, Cuimhnich. 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 Forfeiture. Goo. Cuimhnich. The memory lives. Until next time. Cuimhnich.